One of the greatest things about history is that we are always learning and everything is always up for interpretation as new evidence is discovered. So then, what are some of the greatest mysteries of history that we haven't solved yet? Here are 5 for you to figure out. Easter Island, or Rapa Nui in its indigenous language, is one of the most isolated places on the planet. More than 1,000 years ago, the inhabitants of the island erected hundreds of stone structures known as moai. Carved primarily from stone from the volcanic ash with hand tools, the statues were transported long distances to positions on stone platforms. However, we don't know what their purpose was. How exactly were they moved? Easter Island mythology says that the statues walked. And recently, archaeologists have shown that the Easter Islanders might be right. A few dozen people using ropes could rock a moai from side to side on its base and walk it forward. By the time European explorers arrived, many of the moai were toppled over. Maybe they were symbols of power between warring groups, or maybe they had a peaceful religious purpose. Wooden and stone tablets found at the location are also a mystery. They contain an undeciphered form of writing. Like the statues, the script has so far defied explanation. The Cairn Stones. More than 3,000 upright stones were aligned near the French village of Carnac. The single stones, called menhirs, and the multi-stone groups, called dolmens, stretch for some 2 miles. It's believed that the stones have stood for thousands of years, while archaeologists have not traced their purpose or origins as of yet. These megaliths have been recognized as sacred by Breton culture. Ancient Romans carved their gods on the granite surfaces, while later on, Christians added their own symbols to them. According to one legend, the menhirs are the rocky remains of an army of pagans who chased Saint Cornely toward the sea. When cornered, he turned the army into stone. However, the stones are far older than Christianity, most likely date back to Brittany's pre-Celtic Neolithic period, which ranges from between 4500 BC to 2000 BC. Were they erected as tribute to their gods? Did they honor ancestors with them? Were they used to track alignments of the sun or stars? So far, the secret's still out there. The Great Serpent Mound. The Great Serpent Mound is more than 1,300 feet long, about 20 feet wide, and 4 to 5 feet high. It takes its shape across the hills of southern Ohio, the largest effigy mound in the world. The tail ends at a coil, and its head appears to be swallowing a giant egg. The real mystery, though, is who built it and what does it mean? It was first described in the 1840s and was originally attributed to the ancient Adena people, who inhabited the area from about 500 BC to 100 AD, and whose remains are found in nearby burials. However, radiocarbon dating has suggested that it is younger, probably about 900 years old. The Fort ancient culture was influenced by the Mississippian culture, which featured rattlesnakes in much of their work. Some archaeologists have pointed out that the Serpent Mound's head aligns with the summer solstice, so perhaps it has an astronomical or ceremonial purpose. Since no artifacts or written records are found with it, the mystery remains. The Nazca Lines. Around 2,000 years ago, ancient people in modern-day Peru etched more than 1,000 figures into the coastal desert. Quadrangles, trapezoids, spirals, narrow lines, and outlines suggest that the shapes of giant creatures span across hundreds of square miles, located between the towns of Nazca and Palpa. In the 1920s, Trans-Andean pilots rediscovered the enormous geoglyphs during their flights. Over the past century, many explanations have come and gone. We know that the people that built them thrived from about 200 BC to 600 AD. Researchers have theorized that they could represent irrigation lines, an astronomical calendar, Inca roads, images viewed from above by the gods, and interestingly, spaceports for alien aircraft. However, today's leading explanation tends to be much simpler. The glyphs may have formed ceremonial pathways. Many of the figures are associated with rain or fertility, and traces of footprints can still be seen along the lines. El Dorado. The first El Dorado was in fact a man, not a city. Spanish conquistadors in South America heard the legend early in the 1500s. Somewhere in the Andes Mountains, they were told by the indigenous Muisca people that they would initiate a new chief by dusting him with gold from head to toe, and to toss gold and emeralds into a sacred lake. Filled with greed, Spanish, English, Portuguese, and German plunderers pursued deep into the wilderness of Colombia, Guyana, and Brazil, and anywhere else they found enticing, in search of this legendary treasure. Among the interested treasurer seekers was Sir Walter Raleigh. whose son Wat died in the attempt in 1617, and who was himself executed upon his return to Europe for disobeying the king's instructions. Many people, both Native Americans and Europeans, died in these greedy quests. However, the golden treasure was never found. There may be some truth to the legend, though. The lake mentioned in the Muisca story may be Laguna Guatavita, located high in the Andes near Bogota, Colombia. Some golden objects and jewels have been recovered from the lake, but attempts to drain the lake and recover the further riches have all failed. If there is a treasure down there, it still remains to be found. So, will you be pursuing these mysteries? What are some other mysteries from history? Let me know in the comments below.